Hi, Professor Brandt. My name is Kendra Witherspoon again here Tuesday at 10:50 p.m. I'm going to be talking about Units 3 and 4 today. I definitely feel that Unit 3 was maybe my favorite so far because I feel like we get to learn a little bit more about economics, we get to learn a little bit more about social responsibility, and also I feel like I got to talk a little bit more about sustainability, which is one of my favorite topics. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and so being sustainable and green and eco-friendly is very important in my life, and I feel like knowing which companies also believe in the same ideas that I have is very important. Especially in the fashion industry, we produce a lot of clothing. There's a lot of dyes that have tons of chemicals in them, a lot of fabric waste, and I just feel like we are one of the most wasteful industries out of all of them. So I think that something that is the most important to me is learning about how the government can be a stakeholder in a company. Currently, my mother works at the IRS, and a lot of people don't like her for it, but she is like the sweetest person you'll ever meet. However, it is very interesting to me that the government can be held responsible for the way that corporations kind of run their business. They can be put in charge of anything that goes wrong. Like, I know the whole BP oil spill went wrong, and I feel like any of those companies that deal with gas or banks or anything like that would definitely have the government being a stakeholder in the company. So for Unit 4, this was also very interesting. It's basically talking about the organizational behavior factors, psychological and behavioral factors, more structural factors, and industry practices and legal factors. Currently at my job right now, I just got a little bit of a taste about what type of legal factors will go into people renting studios. We do have a lot of high-profile clients, and so we learn about how they have to deal with the charges, they have to deal with confidentiality agreements, and there's also in this, pardon me, sorry, it's outside, it's really loud, I live downtown, but there's a lot of pressure to meet numbers, and I hate this whole idea of companies that are not shocked at losses, because at the end of the day, you have stakeholders, you have people who buy your stock, and you have customers. And if you are setting yourself up for failure, I feel like that is a very bad company, and that is something that you don't want to be a part of, or a company that you wouldn't want to give your money to. There's also they also talk about ethics and company culture, which I think is very important because ethically talking, your company culture really runs it all. The corporation that I chose, which I feel like really relates to this whole both of these units, is J.P. Morgan Chase and Company. I particularly don't like banks, but it seems that you do have to have a bank nowadays or a banking account to be able to get a job, get an apartment, pay your taxes, just to be a regular living being. It's honestly kind of terrible because I feel like banks are very corrupt. There's a lot of CEOs in banks who are terrible, and they go around fronting like they are very for the people, and they end up doing terrible things. One example that I have is for the pipeline in Dakota, the Dakota Access Pipeline, and a lot of these big banks, especially Chase, was going to support this giant project, which I think is terrible and disgusting, terrible for the environment, terrible for Native Americans, and terrible for the American people overall. Pipelines are very dangerous because they can explode, and they are just a waste of government money. I think of it as I would rather have that money go to feed homeless people or give people housing and things to really help us promote ourselves instead of just putting it through some trash industry such as oil and big money. It's just like, I feel like big corporations are only thinking about themselves and they're not thinking about the little guys, and I just feel like they run our whole economy, and so what are we supposed to do about it? I mean, I do know a lot of people who did end up closing their checking accounts with these big banks, but at the end of the day, it really didn't make a difference on their profits or the economy or anything. I think that they are making slow steps to stop the giant pipeline that will happen. However, it's not as successful as it could be. So I'll give you a little bit of history after my little rant about how I hate banks. So JP Morgan Chase is the sixth largest bank in the world. They have 240,000 employees, which globally, which I feel like they would have way more. I mean, I know banks are something that are very important to all of our economies and things like that. So you think that they would definitely have more employees, but these employees have resulted in a combination of several U.S. banking companies that are very large since 1996. So the Chase Manhattan Bank was formed upon the 1955 purchase of Chase National Bank by the Bank of Manhattan Company, which is really cool because that company was established in 1799. The company's oldest predecessor institution, which is super cool because during all of my history research for this company, they mainly just talked about the predecessors, which the way that I see it is it's like a family tree, and in a way that kind of makes me uncomfortable because you should be able to start your own bank with your own morals, but anyways, that's fine. So we're going to go back talking about the Manhattan Company. So the Bank of the Manhattan Company was a creation of Aaron Burr, who transformed the Manhattan Company from a water carrier into a bank. David Rockefeller, during the 1970s and 1980s, he led this whole movement. Chase Manhattan emerged as one of the largest and most prestigious banking concerns, with leadership positions in syndicated lending, treasury, security services, credit cards, mortgages, everything that you need to basically start your life. In the early 1990s, when there was a real estate collapse, this weakened the whole banking system. And then it was actually acquired by the Chemical Bank in 1996, but it also retained the Chase name. Before this merger with JP Morgan and Company, the new Chase expanded the investment and asset management groups through two acquisitions. In 1999, it acquired San Francisco-based Hambrecht and Quist for $1.35 billion, and then in April 2000, UK-based Robert Fleming and Company was purchased by the new Chase Manhattan Bank for $7.7 billion. So ultimately, JP Morgan Chase and Company is basically just like a big collage of all of these different companies combined. So I think that this is very important on how I will run my own career, because I want to be the CEO of Condé Nast, and I'm sure I've talked about that like a million times now. But knowing the logistical issues, knowing the impact that your business will have through your decisions on the people who you're supposed to be serving, it's very, very important to me. And I feel like a lot of these big companies don't, and a lot of these CEOs are just so corrupt. They're only thinking about themselves and the money at the end of the day, and they don't care if they're like losing money because they are expecting it. It's truly terrible. Okay, so please pardon the music outside. It's just regular downtown craziness, but now I'm going to be going into the text questions. So I'm going to start with with reading 4.3, question number 1. I feel like in order for the financial report to be developed correctly, that the auditor should gather the relevant and appropriate information. I do understand that there is a big issue with making sure that all of the correct feedback is given from the departments, and this could be due to a weak relationship. I also feel like the auditors would be more disposed to go to the competitions organizations to harm the original organization that they're looking into. So basically just keeping all of these good relationships is very important. For number 2, I feel like the most unethical conduct within the organization is probably primarily due to the unawareness of the ethics and ethical behavior that's going on in their organization. I feel like the best way to fix this is through training and ethical conduct through the organization itself. Question number 3, sorry I'm speaking so fast but I'm running out of time. In question number 3, the author speaks about restructuring the pay structure of the executives, which I think is very important because a lot of executives take a big pay cut in their employees underneath them, especially the entrance level jobs are very little. They're making no money, they're barely even making the minimum wage. So basically redoing that calculation for the CEO's pay, and I would also do that myself. For rating 4.9, I'm going to talk about number 1, using what you've learned during the reading, describe the use of steroids in the professional baseball and determine how the practice became so pervasive in the industry. The use of steroids in the professional baseball industry has always been large, along with all of the other sports industries as well. This can be traced back to the early phase of the sport, where there were obviously individual lapses in their ethical standpoint. So if we are able to push forward with like a drug awareness and screening and make sure that everyone is personally committed to doing what they do in an ethical way, that would be fantastic. For number 2, explain what must be fixed at the company level that is different from the fixes for individual ethics lapses. I think at the company level what has to be fixed, it should be determined by the company ultimately, but externally. This way that there's no bias, and it could be held at an individual capacity. An organization should never let an individual lapse because the organization is letting that person down. I feel like there is an alignment of management goals that could be put into place, making sure that people are being paid and compensated in the correct way so they can live a decent wage, and to make sure that they're not going to be doing anything tricky. And then for number 3, I think that examples of peer pressure, they also result in industry level choices. So negative peer pressure can lead to poor industry level choices, and people can ultimately have like a large disregard for ethics and morals. So in sales especially, people will be more likely to race ahead of their targets. They might do a poor job and end up offending anyone. Anyway, sorry this video is a little bit long, but thank you for listening. My name is Kendra Witherspoon. Again, it is a pleasure to have you watch my video, and thank you so much.